Good morning, folks. And here we have more evidence that, yes, the story of the Rise of Skywalker was probably not as good as people might have thought. Many elements might have been tacked on at the last minute. That seems to be the case. And it's just a bad story. There's bad elements, there's bad understanding between science fiction and characters and the conflict therein. It's just a horrible thing. Now, the way that we're getting all this information is that a writer is novelizing the movie, and it was created that way, so they have to fill in some blanks, and that's normal for going from one primary source, which happens to be a more visual medium like a movie, into a novel, because a book is going to have a lot more detail. It's going to be a lot more information required for the reader to understand what's going on, which is obviously not something the writer of Episode 9, the movie, didn't do. Think of it like a comic book. In a comic book, you have multiple scenes, and in between those scenes, many things could happen. Like, I don't know, Batman's on one side of the city, and then the next frame, he's at the other side. You think, okay, maybe he took the Batmobile. Maybe he knew a faster route underground or something. So those sorts of information is kind of nice to know, and provided the writer knows what they're doing and knows the nature of the character. So if Batman has all these resources, maybe he could use the Batjet to get there faster, for example. So that wouldn't be unheard of. You'd be like, okay, yeah, the Batman decided to call his jet, and within seconds it came, and boom, off he was. That could help. And it could catch things that a comic book artist or writer or a movie writer wouldn't be able to think of. Now, in this case, we're dealing with a science fiction concept of cloning. And another thing is the speculation of how the heck did Palpatine, or now we know it's a clone of Palpatine, get busy with some lady at what point in time, and that lady then had a relationship with some other, or sorry, that lady had a child, that child then had a relationship with someone else, and that coupling produced Rey. Well, it turns out that's not the case. The passage in the book reveals that the Return of the Jedi, Palpatine thrust his consciousness into the clone body. So what was happening was there was some cloning facility on Exegol by the cult, the Sith cult there, and they made an imperfect clone. So one of these clones, this is by the Sith Eternal group, the people on Exegol. One of these clones was a useless, powerless failure who was a not quite identical clone, which implies a male clone. So essentially, this wasn't really Palpatine's son. This was just a clone of Palpatine, which wasn't quite perfect, which is strange, because if you know anything about cloning, you're using an identical copy of DNA from one life form to make another. So while this body wasn't fit to house Palpatine's power, it was still able to live and eventually become Rey's father. Okay, well, this implies a whole bunch of things. So imagine the Sith Eternal people going, oh, this is a failure. So now we have this failed clone, which I don't know how the transfer was imperfect. So it's like partially Palpatine's spirit. Somehow this male clone of Palpatine escaped Exegol, had a life of his own, met a girl, had a family, and if we are to believe The Last Jedi, as Rian Johnson explains, that they're just a bunch of filthy junk traders. Okay, so were they running away, and junking was the only way they made their living, as they were fleeing the Sith, the hidden Sith Eternal Empire? This is where we get two bad writers and an actual writer trying to take these ideas and try to novelize it and making no sense. And so there's all these other questions that start popping up. What kind of life did this guy lead? How did he escape the Sith Eternal Empire? Did Palpatine give a crap, or the spirit of Palpatine give a crap? Was it partially in the body of the clone who was Rey's father? Was he in control of that? Was he aware of that? Was the real Palpatine spirit, clone, whatever, aware of it? Could they sense each other? Like, all these crazy things start popping up in your head. And just to show you that this is not fixing anything. You're creating more of a mess, which sounds very similar to another Star Wars, or sorry, science fiction franchise I might be known for talking about a lot. So you can't fix something which is fundamentally broken, is what I'm trying to get at. And now that we have books coming out, or a book that has come out, trying to cobble together some semblance of a natural, logical progression of ideas, science fiction ideas, things with immortality, transferring consciousness, having power come out of nowhere, like in case of Rey being a Mary Sue. You have all these half-baked, if not fundamentally bad ideas, like Mary Sue is a bad idea. It's bad writing. It doesn't work. It doesn't matter what format you take. It doesn't matter if it's in a novel or it's in a movie or anything else. It's bad writing, whatever form it takes. So this is the problem. The problem with the book is that because it's a novel or it's in written form, the problems shine out a lot more because the writer needs to fill in detail. They have to do exposition. They have to connect the dots. And the dots, they're pointing to each other. They're just not making any sense because in between that are all these questions like what the hell happened to this father figure who led this crazy life and did all these things and tried to protect his daughter, and all the problems from The Last Jedi, which Rian Johnson just threw to the ground or didn't do anything with. So it's bad writing on top of bad writing with a writer trying to make sense of that and just doing the best they could to make another product you could buy, I guess. I don't know why they made a novel of this crappy movie, or rather crappy movie series. I do like the writer's response or last paragraph here. It'll be interesting if any future canon materials explore more of Rey's father's story. Of course, let's have an entire backstory to Rey's dad, who was now officially a Palpatine failed clone. I mean, you're going to have to, because there's this giant hole where this story should be. What's fascinating is that even though Palpatine was extremely disappointed in this not quite identical clone, I don't know how that... Was he in a clone body when he was disappointed? Was he just some spirit telling the Sith people he's disappointed? I don't know. And the body couldn't serve the purpose for which it was built. Rey's dad was able to leave Exegol and lead a life. Yeah, exactly. One might have expected Palpatine to order the clone be destroyed or, hunt it down. So there could be more here. This is one big giant hole. It's a can of worms that just kept going and just kept going. So bravo, Disney. You seem to not give a flying crap who your writers are. And you actually ask a writer to write a novel based off a movie, and the readers are going, wow, this is a pile of garbage. I mean, this is stuff that if you were to write a science fiction novel, an original piece, single one-shot, and asked to get it published, they'd be like, what the hell is this crap? This is crap that someone might have written 100 years ago and didn't know anything about genetics or logic or science fiction, for that matter. So, yes, Star Wars is a failed storytelling series, and the best it could do is run off or work off the work that George Lucas did to make a buck. That's about all I could see so far. I guess the video games are pretty good. I have to try some to make a comment on them. I haven't tried them yet. But, we got the video games and maybe some animated series, possibly. Anyway, guys, thanks for listening. Have yourself a great day.